Did you know ancient Egyptians had better mosquito control 4,000 years ago than some of us do right now? Why aren't we talking about this? How did they figure it out without science? And what does that say about everything we think we've discovered? Well, it's time to do some rediscovering. Now, aside from building pyramids and writing in hieroglyphs, the ancient Egyptians were also trying not to get eaten alive by mosquitoes, and they had a few tricks up their linen sleeves. We're talking about the pharaonic period here, roughly 3,100 to 332 BC, a long time ago. Still, they were surprisingly resourceful. They used bed nets, they burned aromatic plants, they even designed their homes to outsmart the bugs. This stuff actually shows up in actual texts, archaeology, and even some old Greek gossip. Now let's start with the nets. Herodotus, the Greek historian who seemed to have an opinion on everything, tells us that folks living in the Nile Delta had a clever system. By day, they used nets to fish. But by night, they used the same nets to drape them over their beds. They'd then crawl inside to sleep, safe from swarms of mosquitoes. And according to him, regular cloth wasn't effective. The bugs would bite straight through. But as for nets, they were too fine. Mosquitoes wouldn't even try. Now either Herodotus was impressed or just really tired of scratching his arms. Either way, it's one of the earliest written references to mosquito nets. And get this, they also took the high ground, literally. People built towers or, more commonly, slept on rooftops, where the breeze helped keep the mosquitoes away. Turns out, the little pests aren't great at flying in wind. So the Egyptians leveraged that. No bug spray required. It's a clever response to a real problem. You can almost hear someone saying, "Just sleep upstairs, they hate the draft." There's even evidence in the furniture. Take Queen Hetepheres I, mother of Pharaoh Khufu, pyramid royalty. Her bed frame from around 2500 BC had a wooden canopy. Egyptologists think it probably held some sort of thin, transparent curtain or netting, something to keep the bugs out while she slept in peace. Modern researchers believe her bed included a mosquito net, which would make it the oldest known example. So yes, long before citronella candles or electric zappers, the Egyptians were already on it. They fought mosquitoes with design, ingenuity, and maybe a little style. And honestly, it's still better than some hotel mosquito plans today. Now, the actual mosquito net from Queen Hetepheres' bed didn't survive. Organic fibers rarely do, but the frame did. And bits of fine linen. Enough to say, yeah, they probably weren't just going for style. So, in the end, it looks like the elite were using mosquito nets over 2,000 years before the Common Era. Long before Herodotus ever showed up and wrote down what regular folks were doing. But mosquito defense wasn't just for bedtime. You see, Egyptian houses had a few tricks built right into the walls. A lot of homes had small, high-set windows or narrow vents. They kept the heat out, let a bit of air in, and, bonus, made it hard for bugs to fly through. Smart. Nobody wrote, "This keeps out mosquitoes." But come on, if your living room is cool, dark, and hard to enter, that's a pretty solid passive defense. And when that failed, they swatted. Fly whisks like bundles of fibers or horsehair show up everywhere in ancient art. Servants waving them over nobles, or nobles just doing it themselves. Technically for flies, but if something's buzzing in your face, you don't stop to check species. So between nets, window design, and weaponized fanning, they had options. And now, let's talk about smoke. Burning stuff to make bugs leave is one of humanity's oldest pest control moves. Egyptians didn't invent it, but they used it well. They burned incense like frankincense, myrrh, and fancy temple-grade resins. Sure, it smelled nice and had spiritual uses, but all that fragrant smoke also repelled mosquitoes. Even Roman writers caught on. They described Egyptians lighting slow-burning fires, or smudge fires, to cloud the place up after sunset. The smoke kept the insects away. It's simple and effective. A bit dramatic if you overdo it. Modern entomologists actually back this up. They note that ancient smoke methods worked. Not perfectly, but enough to make a difference. But the ancient Egyptians didn't stop with smoke. They also turned to chemistry. The Ebers Papyrus, written around 1550 BC, is basically an ancient medical scroll combined with a do-it-yourself pest control blog. And one of the first lines is how to get rid of vermin in the house. One tip is to sprinkle natron water on the floor. You see, natron's a natural salt, alkaline, slightly abrasive, mildly insect repellent. It's also great for mummification, if you're into that. Another recipe is to leave fish eggs out to rot. Yep, fermented fish goo. Spread it around the house. The smell alone probably cleared the building. But was it effective? Probably. Was it pleasant? Absolutely not. Now, to be fair, that one's aimed at fleas. But the idea, using overwhelming stench or irritating substances to drive pests out, this works across the insect spectrum. So, yeah, the Egyptians didn't wait around to get bitten. They designed smarter homes, waved bugs away, smoked them out, and weren't above deploying rotten fish juice if that's what it took. Because when the Nile gets muggy and the mosquitoes start swarming, you do what you have to. The ancient Egyptians also used ash. Yes, ash. Seemingly, it was a pest control tool as well, especially in places where grain was stored. One recipe involved burning straw and spreading the ash under granaries or grindstones. Apparently, bugs hate dry, dusty layers and low-grade smoke. In Giza, archaeologists found layers of ash under a granary, and it wasn't an accident. That was intentional. Basically, a bug deterrent mat. And while that was aimed at crop pests, the method had crossover potential. Anything that made life miserable for weevils probably annoyed mosquitoes too. And hey, even everyday hearths played a role. Egyptian fires often burned dried animal dung. It wasn't exactly incense, but that sharp smoke was great for keeping biting insects away. Aside from using ash, the Ebers Papyrus also recommends burning gazelle dung to protect grain. Sure, it wasn't a luxury fragrance, but mosquitoes don't care for aromatics. Now, if you're thinking, what about repellents you could wear? Well, they had that covered too. So let's talk oils. First and foremost, they had castor oil, which was made from the kiki plant. This was a multi-purpose go-to. Herodotus said Egyptians grew kiki along the Nile, pressed it for oil, and used it in lamps, even though it smelled terrible. And this exact smell is what likely gave it bug-repelling power. They also used it on their skin for moisture, sun protection, and possibly mosquito defense. Now, we don't have papyri that flat out say, "This oil keeps bugs off." But later sources suggest that after waking up, maybe from a peaceful night under a net, people rubbed on castor oil as morning armor. The thick film and strong scent made it hard for bugs to land or bite. Plus, even today, castor oil is used to ward off flies and lice. So yeah, the logic tracks. Other oils probably got in on the act too, like cedar, herbal blends, and whatever they had on hand. It was skin care and mosquito insurance. Functional, smelly, and brilliant. One ancient herbal manual lists plant like frankincense, myrrh, mint, and marjoram. You'll recognize those from perfumes, but insects, they're definitely not fans of them. Again, the ancient texts don't spell it out with a neon sign saying, "Rub this on to stop mosquito bites." But the pattern's there, strong-smelling oils, applied to the body, repelling pests. You get the drill. For example, to drive away fleas, one recipe mixed plants, salt and animal fat, rubbed on skin or smeared on floors, basically a bug-off blend. Then there's the Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical manual, not exactly bedtime reading. Even that advises covering wounds with grease and honey. Now, honey might attract flies, so it wasn't ideal. But grease mixed with aromatic herbs, that could repel. One New Kingdom text even suggests using a mixture of elephant fat and incense to keep snakes and scorpions away. Which sounds a bit intense, sure, but the smell alone might have worked on insects too. But in general, ancient Egyptians oiled up. Daily. They used linseed oil, ben oil or moringa, balanos oil, and animal fats. All of them were often infused with herbs. So that glossy finish likely helped keep the bugs at bay. Also, where people lived mattered. You see, most settlements were built a little higher up the river on the desert edge. It was smart for farming and smart for avoiding mosquito hotspots. Why? Well, because mosquitoes love shallow, still water. Exactly what the Nile's edges offered. So, by staying up on drier ground, Egyptians avoided some of the worst swarms. In the delta, though, Lower Egypt, that wasn't really an option. The land's marshy and wet. Bug central. Herodotus even flat out says they were infested with mosquitoes. And that's where the nets came in, and the tower sleeping, and staying indoors at dusk, when gnats swarmed like crazy. Some funerary texts even mention how annoying the evening clouds of bugs were, which tells you this wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was a daily battle, and the Egyptians weren't about to lose it. It turns out the Egyptians' approach to water wasn't just about growing crops or feeding cities. It might have also helped keep mosquitoes in check, whether they meant to or not. They managed irrigation carefully. Canals flowed steadily, and floodwaters were timed to drain before they could turn fields into mosquito breeding grounds. Fast-moving waters were bad for larvae. Stagnant puddles were basically a mosquito day spa. And then there were the fish. Egypt's waterways were full of them, especially the kind that eat larvae, like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Even modern science makes the connection. Flooded fields plus hungry fish equals fewer mosquitoes. Simple math, and they had backup. Livestock like goats, cattle, and chickens probably played an accidental role in mosquito control too. You see, these animals were often housed just outside living areas, which gave the bugs a choice: human blood or a tasty cow buffet 10 feet away. It's called zoo prophylaxis now. But back then it was just where the animals sleep. Nevertheless, it worked. And in the end, whether through irrigation, architecture, animals, amulets, or ancient spells, the Egyptians were very much in a long, creative battle against the bite. So the next time you reach for bug spray or curse a summer night full of bites, remember, this is nothing new. For thousands of years, people have been swatting, smoking, oiling, and outsmarting mosquitoes because it worked.